guys, what's up? Kwanzaa Day 3 Ujima. Collective work and responsibility. Sorry, there's gonna be a lot of noise. Okay. Let's roll the windows up. Okay. Sorry. Roll the windows up. Had the car turned on too. Warming up the car. Let's see. I don't want the windows all completely down. I just realized or saw that it's supposed to rain New Year's Eve. So I'm going to be outdoors New Year's Eve in the rain. It's going to be a rough time. A little bit, maybe. But Ujima, collective work. That's the Nguzo Saba for today. Kwanzaa Day 3. Collective work and responsibility to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. There's a symbol that says Akoma to Aso. The Adinkra symbol of shared effort and obligation, active and informed togetherness. The third principle of Ujima, collective work and responsibility, which is a commitment to active and informed togetherness on matters of common interest. It is also recognition and respect for the fact that without collective work and struggle, progress is impossible, and liberation unthinkable. Moreover, the principle of Ujima supports the fundamental assumption that African is not just an identity but also a destiny and duty, i.e., a responsibility. In other words, our collective identity in the long run is a collective effort of collective future. Thus, there is a need and obligation for us as a self-conscious and committed people to shape our future with our own minds and hands and share its hardships and benefits together. Ujima as a principle and practice also means that we accept the fact that we are collectively responsible for our failures and setbacks as well as our victories and achievements, and this holds true not only on the national level but also on the level of family and organization or smaller units. Such a commitment implies and encourages a vigorous capacity for self-criticism and self-correction, which is indispensable to our strength, defense, and development as a people. Alright, well, I don't know. In all honesty, I wasn't paying too close attention to what I was reading. So I would just say in general with community, people kind of generally know where they stand, where their communities stand. I would just say, you probably don't want to get too wrapped up in other people's stuff. The saying, like, their problems are your problems and all that. It's like, to some extent, yes, but to some extent, no. Like, people have responsibility for their own stuff, too. They can't just fully depend on other people all the time. People need to kind of do what's within their own power and ability. Of course, it's good to help out. I wouldn't say it's good to just totally just take on somebody's full burden. Like, yeah, you can maybe do that with one or two people, like adopt them, maybe let them live with you, whatever, you know, like there's nothing, I would say there's nothing really wrong with that if you're trying to like share a life with somebody, even if it's not like dating or marriage, and you make a decision that you're like, okay, I want to really deeply help these people over an amount of years, or help this person with their kid till their kid turns 18. And if they're wanting that and you're wanting that, you know, that obligation to take on, and you want to do it for like a few years or whatever, uh, it's your own decision, you know. I wouldn't say everybody has the capacity to be able to help people long term and in depth and very hands on. Like if somebody needs groceries a couple times a week, taking them to do groceries and taking them to get their laundry finished and taking them to do all this other stuff. I wouldn't say that every single week you're gonna find that. So you're gonna find that the energy or ability to want to do that all the time. Like most people don't want to. It's admirable when people want to do that or when they can, but you really got to still protect your own energy. That's mostly what I would say. I would say that that's probably the most helpful someone could probably be, is to be very hands-on and very involved. But then like there might need to be some kind of like time limit or rules, and like, hey, when your kid's 18, you know, maybe I'm not buying half your groceries anymore, or when you're, you know, I'll do this for a couple years, but then, you know, there's like a cutoff period. Um, I mean, at least for me, that's how I, now knowing what I know, if I were gonna do that, that's what I would do. Because I don't think indefinitely trying to help people is always going to be the best option. It's not always going to be an opportunity. You're probably not always going to be able to try to do that. So, but if you can and you want to, cool. And even if you don't want to, I think it's still good to always try to help at least a little bit. I'd say like weekly, monthly, you know, try to help somebody, you know. Like I come from a culture of, you know, tithing and stuff like that, offering, and you know, even if I'm not involved in like a, you know, I'm not like strictly like involved with a membership where I'm really like doing that all the time, like I still like to pay attention to volunteering time and energy, you know, at least more than once a month, preferably once a week. But even if it's like, you know, by someone who's living on the street or who's down on their luck, you know, get them a burger or something, get them a Subway, you know, get them a healthy meal, get them a little gift card or something. You know, I'm into that. You know, if you want to help from a distance, even, or even giving to charity or some, you know, I've even considered like Patreon subscriptions and things like. I'm not saying mine, but like, you know, supporting like a content creator that's like, you know, they're doing some good kind of work, and it's like, okay, like it's like, yeah, maybe I'm consuming too, but it's like sometimes I do consider it like charity, like it, in a way. It's like, you know, I'm donating to this platform, you know, because this person is providing some kind of work. Um, but yeah, just at least, you know, little things. I don't know if I could. I do believe that people should help each other a lot, but I also know that sometimes when people are getting that help, they take more than what they actually need, and might lean too heavily on the person who's helping them, to the point where it's just like overly draining. And I've had that experience often in my life, um, where I've kind of, you know, been the one who's trying to help, and then even though, you know, I'd say the worst of it, when I was trying to help somebody, was I'm not gonna say the details, but the worst of it was someone who And maybe they're in the right. I'm not saying they're fully in the wrong for this, but they were kind of calling me out for being like moody and grumpy and not in a good mood when I'm around them. And I'm kind of thinking like, okay, like, do you not realize why I was feeling that way? It's like, of course, I'm acting like this because I don't feel well and you need too much and I'm trying to give and you're ungrateful. I'm not saying like they need to be thanking me every 5 seconds or anything, but it's like you could tell they weren't, you know, like I knew that they were kind of like in a financial position where they couldn't afford a lot. So, for example, even though I'd be driving them long distances and stuff, I would never ask for gas money. And then I remember once having to go to like, there was some kind of a group setting that we all kind of went to. And I remember, this has got to be like 15 years ago or something. So I don't really remember the details. But I remember telling the people, because I was carpooling like quite a few of us there. And I remember telling the people who were hosting, I was like, sorry, I've only got money for one way there, considering I've got to pick up all these people and then I've got to drop them all back home. And the place where we were going wasn't even in like LA County. And I was like, I could make it there and back, but it's like, sorry if I can't. Like, I was just saying, like, I really want to make it, but it's like, it's hard for me to make it because these people are like relying on me heavily, in a way that I can't really afford it. And I was like picking them up more than once a week doing stuff, and I couldn't really afford to be doing that. Um, and they were kind of taking advantage of it, but also I was kind of saying yes. So it's kind of like, and I didn't have the energy, and I was still overextending myself. And I've just learned not to do that, not to overextend my energy to the point of exhaustion and becoming kind of more bitter about assisting. But you know, it's good to try to practice selflessness, um, but it can come with some bitterness and resentment and just kind of like frustration. But I remember them, you know, like when we were gonna leave, and one of the hosts was like just giving me a little cash for. They're like, oh, here, you guys gotta go. Like, here you go. And then the other people who I was carpooling, they saw this person give me money, and then they're like, oh, like, we didn't know, like, we'll pay for the gas, like, and then they said it then, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe they saw that, like, I was, getting a little bit of money from this person, um, to help all of us get where we need to get for the weekend or whatever. So maybe from then on, you think, okay, so now they're going to pitch in because they know that I'm broke. And like, no, they never pitched in after that either. Like, I remember at one point, I used to tell people, just give me the gas money that you're going to spend on gas. Give me your bus money that you were going to spend, like, or give me part of it. Just give me $1 every time, if I have to pick you up, just give me $1, because you were going to spend however much on the bus. Just give me $1 for gas. And then still having to like chase people down for like $1, and then I just realized, I was like, well, these people don't care. Like, people say they want to help and pay and pitch in, but it's like, they say it, but they don't, and you almost can't expect it. And they know that it's too awkward for you to ask, so you're not gonna ask. You're not gonna ask. You're not gonna be like, look, I'm kind of struggling here. I'm just trying to help you out. you know, and they're gonna make you ask, Um, so I would say, you never want to be, in a position where you're kind of taking it out on the people that are that you're trying to help. It can get to a level of bitterness that's like that, and I would say look out for that. But on the flip side, you don't want to be that member of the community that's like relying heavily on other people. And I come from a culture where people rely on each other a lot, and it's kind of toxic, I would say, or not ideal. I would say it can be toxic. Not it's not always toxic just because someone's relying, but it can be toxic, you know, because people expect like, oh, you're this age or you're, you know, this role, like I need to be asking you for all this kind of stuff. Um, you know, and you're doing all this other stuff. You know, I need to ask. You know, I might need to ask for that. You know, you know. Uh, and I would just say, I would say, if you ever felt like you used anybody in the past, it's never too late for an apology. Um, like you might feel uh, like it's too late for an apology. You might feel like, oh, it's been so long since this thing happened, and I was relying on this person, and you know, and then they kind of like, you know, um, I don't know. Um, they might never say anything to you. Um, and I would say if they don't, I mean, even if they do, but if they don't, I think that almost shows how much they trust in you and try to respect you. If they don't try to like, you know, get in, get you to kind of like pay it back or whatever. Um, like I'm just talking about if people borrowed in the past or if people were, you know, requesting assistance in the past and then maybe they've got it together a little bit more. You know, a lot of times people aren't gonna like, you know, approach you about it. And I would say, you know, it might be because they're being a good friend and they don't want to make it awkward. Um, and they don't want to like put a strain on the friendship. But you know, you never want to put someone in a tricky situation. Um, and I guess that's kind of what I'm saying about like culturally. I kind of grew up around like a culture that's like people kind of are a little comfortable with borrowing money or asking a lot from someone, and I've learned to just say no. Um, you know, we have a lot of people that sometimes come to visit, and they'll come into town, and there's not even a plan, and maybe I'm already busy, and they're always like, "Hey, can you come pick me up at the airport? Hey, can you like show me around LA and like take me around?" And it's like, well, if we didn't plan for this, and you're just like, "Oh, I might be in town," and then next thing I know, you're showing up like, "Hey, tomorrow I'm gonna be at the airport. Can you like pick me up and can I stay over and like all this?" And it's like usually my answer is gonna be no. But culturally, I'm kind of more expected to say yes, but I don't because then I'm like, these people take too much advantage. The last time we had people over, I don't think we even knew they were coming over, and then they stayed. They came over on a day later than what they said they were gonna come, and then they stayed later than they said, and they brought double the amount of people. And of course, you know, I'm a little trusting when people come over, so I keep my stuff out. You know, just not. I'm not saying like I keep my money just like floating around in public spaces, but like I keep my stuff out. Like I've got my gym bag that's maybe like somewhere. It might be in a public space in the house, like a shared space, open, like with my stuff in there, and like yeah, people take stuff out of my things. Like it might seem innocent. They might take like a sports towel or like my locker room lock or like, you know, deodorant or like a toothbrush or, you know, you have extra stuff and people just take it because they see it's there and they don't even ask and they just take it. Like I come from a culture that's kind of like that where it's like people just take what they want. Even if it's, and it is seemingly little stuff. Like I've never had a situation where somebody took like a big thing. It's always little stuff, but still, it's like they're taking little stuff, and then you're just kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? You're like taking all my stuff. So, and then they travel and do all this other kind of stuff, and then it's like, and then people are always like, come visit, and I'm like, no, I can't come visit. I can't afford it, you know. And then they're always like, well, just ask so and so to pay, ask this other person to pay. Like, I'm not gonna ask people to like pay for a ticket for me to take an international trip somewhere that is not a necessity for me to go to. You know, even if somebody really wants me there, it's kind of like, I kind of like doing things more independently, as much as I can, even though at the moment that's not really what's going on. But I've got a game plan. I've had a game plan the whole time. It's just, for me, I know it's not working out that smoothly, but I'm even at a point where I'm like, you know, 2026, I got it. Regardless of what is going right or wrong, I'm probably just gonna just have to suck it up and get a roommate or something, or just move out of state if it comes to that. Cause like, I don't feel like I'm mooching, but I don't really like it is both ways. Like, I would say, in a way, I've been relying pretty heavily on family members, but then also they're relying pretty heavily on me. You know, just for my presence and social aspect of things, and I don't really want that either. Just because, like, sometimes, you know, I don't know how it is with some people socializing with them. You know, you're just kind of not like on the same wavelength. And so I've kind of just learned, you know, there's, you know, I've kind of got my own method with things to where, you know, I don't quite go out of my way to really share um, uh, with some people, like, too much that's going on. Uh, just because, you know, I don't need them involved, you know, does that make sense? Like, not in a mean way, I'm just, you know, I don't need everybody involved in every aspect of my life. But, like, I come from a very community oriented, community focused religious background, and an ethnic background. And so it is, you know, just like culturally, you know, there's a lot of people who want to be in your business, and the way they kind of ask you how you are and stuff is very like gossipy. I'm very used to that kind of thing. Like the other day, I was having, you know, because it's holidays, and you know, there's people I'm catching up with, and there were some people that, you know, I was with some people, a couple of them I don't really trust that much, and we were kind of just sitting there, kind of like, kind of eating, you know, snacking, and you know, they were kind of talking or wanting to talk, and you know, I kind of wasn't really giving a lot of detailed answers because of some of the people there, that I don't really talk to like that. Like, I'm not too open with them about things because I have good reason to know that it's not a good idea. And they're the kind of people I'm like, well, if you don't want your business all over the place, you don't talk about things around these certain people because they're gonna spread the good cheer all over. And we still know a lot of people in common. You know, these people know family members of mine or whatever. So it's like certain things, depending what we're talking about, I'm not talking to them about them because they're gonna go tell their parents or family members or their parents, and then their parents, it's gonna get back to my family somehow, whatever we're saying. And I'm like, well, maybe that's not something I want to share with the family. But you know, there's people I know that are kind of like that. I know quite a few people like that. And the other day we were kind of hanging out, and for like a holiday related thing, and you know, they were asking a lot of questions, and I was kind of just like sitting there. And at a certain point, you know, they were kind of just, we were just sitting there, all of us just like silently sitting there snacking. And it was almost for an uncomfortably long amount of time. Like, I could tell they were waiting to see if I was just gonna like say something. and I decided I'm just not gonna say anything. I'm happy just sitting here eating, glad to catch up and hear what they've got to say. I don't want to talk about anything really on my own end. I just want to catch up to hear what they have to say, and I was just kind of like listening. And you know, like I guess what I would say is like try to keep relationships with people in a way that I can before I have to get to a point where I'm like I'm cutting this off because it's just not healthy for me. But I usually give things a whole lot of chances, and I mean like beyond the amount that I should. You know, I already know there's a certain amount where it's like anybody would be like, get away from this, you know? And I'm not talking like ultra like abusive people. Like obviously if somebody's like that extreme, I'm not gonna be holding on to that like I used to. But, you know, these days, you know, I still kind of tend to kind of have a lot of that around me, to where it's like, you know, people kind of sniff out that you're kind of friendly, and they kind of sniff out that, you know, you could kind of help them with something, and they're not afraid to like ask, and they're not afraid to ask too much, you know. And especially lately because my energy is low and my resources are low, and the resources I do have, when I have them and when I get them, I've got my own goals and plans for my own stuff, to where, you know, I'm not really trying to like rely on other people all the time like that. But yeah, I don't know, like it's tricky, it's a tough one. I'd say it's a hard one, um, but I'd say any kind of community you're a part of, you know, your neighborhood, your work site, school, if it's like a religious or spiritual community, you know, your friendships, your local relationships, even if it's like a gym workout class, or, you know, childhood friends, new friends, whatever it may be, you know, your hiking meetup group or whatever, you know, the people you jam with at Guitar Center, whatever it may be. You might be having that, and um, you know, yeah, it's okay to have that. You know, it's okay to have those types of relationships with people. I think it's okay to have relationships that get a little frustrating and that are kind of a little rocky, and it's a little tough. Um, and yeah, but that's pretty much all I have to say overall on that topic. Um, is it? Let me think. Let me think if there's more.